All right, it's time once again for the Press Box Podcast, and this is episode 114. And this will be our Super Bowl 56 recap episode with the Rams defeating the Bengals over the weekend in Super Bowl 56. Very good game. We're going to break it down from all angles. We'll talk about some of the matchups we previewed in our last episode and how that played out. Some of the coaching strategies used, how that could have been different down the stretch for each team, how that affected the game, the refs, some questionable penalties late in the game. And then kind of touch briefly on, where this team go from here after this game. Touch on all that and much more in this episode. It's a really good one. But before we do that, let's do what we always do and talk about our Twitter account at PressBoxPod. Go follow us on there if you're not already. If you are following us, talk to others about following us as well. We always enjoy interacting with you guys, especially around big events like the Super Bowl. So make sure and do that. Follow us on or subscribe on YouTube to our Pressbox Podcast channel. Search Pressbox Podcast. A lot of good clips up there, with some of our content. And last but not least, be sure to rate and subscribe on iTunes as well. I know a lot of people get our podcast on iTunes. Just leave us a rating, leave us a comment. We always enjoy hearing from you on that platform as well. But yeah, that's that for that. And we'll get into episode 114 of the Pressbox Podcast right now.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda, joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and our producer, Nathan Miranda. Tonight, our recap of Super Bowl 56, a thrilling Super Bowl played this past Sunday in SoFi Stadium in Southern California, the home of the Los Angeles Rams, who obviously were the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. A thrilling Super Bowl that ended basically on the last drive, I guess you might say. The Bengals did get the ball back one more time, but the Rams driving about 75 yards for a touchdown to win the game 23-20. So I guess I'll start with you, Joseph. You obviously thought the Rams were going to win the game, and we all kind of thought they probably had the best team, but for a while there, it certainly looked like the Bengals, might be in control of the game.
Yeah. Honestly, it was probably a little bit closer than I expected. I didn't really anticipate the Rams having to drive down and win the game there at the end of the fourth quarter. But, I think that, ultimately the Rams, like we talked about in the previous episode, we broke down position by position. I think that their I guess, talent just kind of went out eventually. Like, you talk about like Aaron Donald had a great game, put all kinds of pressure on Burrow.
Right.
Cooper Kupp, Super Bowl MVP. He had the best season of any receiver in the NFL and was probably better than any receiver the Bengals had. He scored the game-winning touchdown, had 2 touchdown catches. And Stafford played well. He threw 2 picks as well. You could argue whether one of those was his fault, really, but I think that. Look, the Rams did what they wanted to do. They went all in the season on acquiring talent, giving up picks, and it paid off for them at the end. I thought they'd win the game going in, and they did. We texted a little bit about this during the game, but the Beckham injury was what I think hurt them down the stretch there in the third and fourth quarters because ever since they got him, he was a different receiver than you saw him in Cleveland.
Right.
He was kind of back to his peak existence with the Giants. So that hurt them, but they were able to pull out at the end. They didn't really have a running game that was kind of non-existent.
Right.
I think, and in the preview also, he gave the running game edge to the Bengals and Mixon ended up actually throwing a touchdown, which is kind of rare. But yeah, the outcome played out like I thought it would. It was closer than I thought with the Bengals having the lead late, but the Rams, I think, just had too much talent.
Nathan, what was your take on it?
Yeah, I thought the Rams were the more talented team going in, the team that probably should win, but I thought the Bengals would win just because I thought it was their year, and I thought you just kind of throw all the matchups aside. I just think they're going to win because it's their year. And the Bengals had every chance to win. I mean, it's like they didn't want to. They kept giving the Rams like, here, please take the ball. No, you win. It's like the Bengals kept stopping the Rams late in the game,
right,
and getting the ball back,
right,
with the chance to extend their lead, and they never did anything. Over and over, that same thing. The ball go back to LA. You thought, okay, for sure now the Rams are gonna go ahead. No, they got stopped. Ball back to Cincinnati.
right.
Couldn't do anything. Ball back to LA. No, they got stopped. Ball back to Cincinnati.
Right.
It's like Cincinnati never took any advantage of those opportunities. You know? And then even after the Rams scored there, though, I thought there's a chance Cincinnati could drive back. And you and I were talking about how, talk about the Joe Burrow kind of aura that's already around him. How much greater would it have been if he led a game-winning touchdown drive in the game? And,
right.
But of course they didn't do it.
On the last drive, just we can talk about this. The 2nd and 1 play was questionable to me. Like, ended up just throwing it deep out of bounds, like totally uncatchable. And then they tried to run it on 3rd down. Well, you have basically 2 downs where you can run it there, right? Like if you had some timeouts, so I think they had more than one, maybe. But yeah, if you can't get 1 yard in 2 plays there, or even if you throw a pass, don't throw it just deep out of bounds. That was weird to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they were in position there to get, if they were about midfield or maybe even a little bit past midfield, I think at that time. And you're right. I mean, throw a pass, a safe pass, get your 1st down, try to get at least in field goal range, because that's really all you needed at that time to tie the game and send it into overtime. But you're right. I mean, then you get to 3rd and 1 when the defense is selling out, and you can't get it.
Don't coaches like 2nd and short to throw? They'll take a shot because they figure they have.
They do. But against the Rams defense, especially their defensive line, I guess you're right. But
I'm not saying it was the right. They're doing a lot of coaches like that though. Try to take a shot.
But it's also the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl. Like
right.
You moving the ball, like you know what I mean. Like it's not like a total throwaway down. You only have 4.
I agree with you. I was just saying, and then also though, you made a good point too. Keep moving the ball. It's such a momentum kill. You have an incomplete pass. You just keep taking little chunks. Keep moving it. Keep the momentum going. You know what I mean? Keep don't let the defense rest.
And in all fairness to Joseph's point, had the game been 24-20 where they needed a touchdown, that's different. But all you need is a field goal there. And you gotta take it.
And then of course the final thing that did them in was what we talked about all leading up was the pass rush against the Cincinnati offensive line.
Right.
And you go ahead. I think we'll talk about this later, but go ahead.
I mentioned to Joseph when he and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday. Joseph was talking about Aaron Donald, and he was obviously unblockable there in the second half. But in the first half, the Bengals were actually having some success. What they were doing was they were sliding the center over to help out with Aaron Donald, because the Rams were not sending any pressure. Basically, they were rushing 4 guys and playing coverage, and the Bengals were having success. Joe Burrow was getting rid of the ball quickly, and the Rams couldn't get to him. Well, in the second half, the Rams made an adjustment. What they did was they bring a pass rusher up the middle on a stunt, and the center had to be occupied. Well, now you got Aaron Donald one-on-one on the offensive tackle or the guard, and it was just a mismatch. And then Joe Burrow was holding onto the ball just a little bit too long. Could have been due to the coverage, could have been due to a lot of things, and he ended up paying for it by getting sacked. So that was one thing that I thought was the Rams made an adjustment, and the Bengals did not counter adjust. And maybe they couldn't counter adjust because they didn't have the personnel to do it. But if I remember, I can't remember exactly when this was in the game, but I know at one time they brought in a couple extra tight ends, and they ran the ball rather effectively. They had 2 big runs because they had extra blockers in there. And again, they kind of went away from that as well. So I just thought they did a poor job of adjusting offensively. And again, maybe they couldn't. Maybe they just didn't have the personnel to do it.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was wondering that late in the game. I was thinking, well, all of a sudden it's like they were doing pretty well against the pass rush, and all of a sudden they can't stop it. But I know you just talked at that point, but I think they could have done something to try to get Burrow kind of like, I don't know. What do you think? Rolling him out or something? Does that help? I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of that. They didn't. Go ahead, Joe. They didn't move the pocket much.
Yeah, you also wonder late in the game where Burrow got injured or hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
It looked kind of serious initially, like his reaction and kind of limping off, and obviously he came back in. But you wonder like how limited was his mobility really there and late in the game.
Right.
He really didn't look like he can move very well.
Right.
After that, he was getting rid of the ball even quicker than before. He wasn't really moving too well. I don't think he could have moved well. Yeah.
Right.
I think he maybe. I wonder too if he was 100%, if he would have been 100% on that fourth down play. I wonder if he would have, when he felt the rush getting close, he would have taken off the run with it.
Bill, that's a good point. And really, I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but there was a photo, and I'm surprised. Well, I guess at that time the game was over, and all the Rams had to do was take an ease. So the whole broadcast was more excited about the fact that the Rams were going to win the Super Bowl. But they showed some pictures that Jamar Chase was wide open down the sideline on that last play. Jalen Ramsey had fallen down, so Chase was wide open. If Burrow would have had any more time, he would have found him, and the Bengals would have won the game on that late touchdown pass. So you're right. The injury, the pass rush to Donald, all that combined, or by Donald, all that combined to make that play one where Burrow could not get away and could not make the pass that was there in front of him. I don't even know if he saw it, but the fact was, had he had more time, he probably would have.
Yeah, well, he pump faked that one, started looking somewhere else. Maybe he was about to get to his progression.
Could be.
So what do you think? How did the Rams make their? What did you already say? How did the Rams make an adjustment? How are they able to get to him then?
Well, in the first half, it looked to me like they were blitzing a little bit, the Rams, but they were blitzing off the corner. Okay, so what the Bengals were doing was the Rams defense. I think is a 4-3 type variation. So there was nobody over the center. So what the Bengals were doing was the center was sliding down to help out. If he didn't see anybody come up on top of him, he would slide down and help out on Aaron Donald. So basically you had a double team on Aaron Donald, and Burrow was getting rid of the ball quickly. So Donald was frustrated. He couldn't get to him. In the second half, what the Rams did, instead of blitzing off the edges, what they would do is they would bring an extra rusher up the middle. So now the center was occupied. So now Donald's one-on-one against their offensive tackle or guard, who are not very good pass blockers anyway, and he put extra pressure on Burrow.
And that took him a half to figure that out. This is like an easy thing.
You would think it would be. That's right.
I think you should come off the field and look at the photos, wherever they look at now, the iPad or whatever.
iPad, yeah.
And be able to see, oh, look, they're moving the center over. Let's bring a guy up the middle. I don't see why it took him so long.
Could be. Yeah, could be. But remember, you got that so much time at halftime, to go over stuff.
I also saw one thing, which it was kind of to your point. It wasn't a blitz, but they did a stunt with Von Miller where he, stunted around and came up the middle, which because they knew, I guess, the center was going over to help. So then he came around and they made the center come off him or something. Right.
And another thing that surprised me, I'll let you guys talk about this after I throw it out there, is Joseph alluded to, or maybe Nathan was, or maybe both of you, about when Odell Beckham went down. Okay. Well, that was kind of like, that played right into the Bengals' hands. I mean, once Odell Beckham went down, now the Rams basically had one receiver. Because remember, they went in that game without Tyler Higbee, their tight end, who had sprained his knee against the 49ers in the NFC Championship. So now Beckham goes down. You got one receiver in Cooper Kupp, albeit a very great receiver, but the Bengals were able to double cover him. So what the Rams were trying to do, they tried to run the football, establish the run. They couldn't do it. I mean, I think they had, looking at the stats here, the Rams had basically 43 yards rushing. I mean, it was no rushing, but they kept trying to run the football. So they were playing right into the Bengals' hands. Now, the Bengals, knowing that, especially after they scored that touchdown right out of halftime to take the lead 17-13, and then kicked another field goal to take a 20-13 lead, you think at that time, you're thinking, hey, we got these guys right where we want them. They got one pass receiver. They can't run the football. You got to try something offensively to put some more points on the board, even if it's just another field goal, because you get a 10-point lead late in that game. Yeah. And it could be a big difference.
And like I said, they had multiple opportunities. They kept stopping the Rams.
Yeah, they did.
And they had multiple opportunities to put some more points on the board. They just never could.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the opposite of that point is, you think they're feeling like, okay, well, Beckham's out. They're weakened offensively. Like, let's not try to make any mistakes here, and because we're full confident we can hold them.
Yeah, maybe that could be.
I also think they're not used to playing with the lead either late in the game. Kind of. They're always coming back. So they were like, "What do we do?"
Well, I think I remember leaning over to Nathan. Remember, the Rams took a 14-3 lead, and I think I said they got the Rams right where they wanted.
Yeah, well, because it is. Think about it. It is a different mentality playing from behind and playing with the lead.
Yeah, it is.
You have to know how to play with the lead.
But you got arguably arguably, every time I say arguably, I think of A-Rod saying that Mariano Rivera was arguably the greatest closer of all time. But every time I say arguably, but you got arguably the best kicker in the league right now, at least at this point in McPherson. Try something to at least get within 50 yards and try a field goal. I mean, the guy's probably going to make it. So
maybe like Joseph said, maybe they were always so scared they didn't want to make a mistake and give the Rams good field position or something.
And that could be.
I think we talk about, or people talk about Super Bowl experience with the players on each team. I think coaching Super Bowl experience comes into play too, where as coach in the Super Bowl, and his first time, and Belichick obviously outcoached him, which he's had so much Super Bowl experience, but the Bengals coach had none, and Wes McVay had the advantage, and you got to think the Bengals coach when he gets the lead is thinking, I can win Super Bowl here, like I can't screw this up, like probably less likely, more aggressive than he would be like a Week 11 game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
I wonder if he calls the plays. I don't know if he coaches.
I don't think he does.
It's amazing how so many things can change. Like a whole story, it can change just in a few minutes. Like late in that game, they kept showing McVay on the sidelines. It looked like he was getting antsy.
Yeah.
It's like if they lose that game, he's all of a sudden like the guy that can't win the Super Bowl. He's got like he's supposed to be some genius, but he can't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then just like one drive, then now he's the greatest now, and he's won the Super Bowl. It's just funny.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Another thing too. We talked about this. I think a little bit on our Super Bowl preview show. The Bengals have Jamar Chase, right? I mean, arguably maybe the second best receiver in the league behind Kupp this year. You knew the Rams were going to try to take him away, and they did to a degree. I mean, Jamar Chase still had 5 catches. I think he had. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. He had 5 catches for 89 yards. Right. But my point is, you had to have Tyler Boyd, you had to have T. Higgins step up, and they did to a degree. But Nathan brought this up when we were talking earlier. Tyler Boyd had not dropped a pass all year long, they said. He dropped one in the Super Bowl that was catchable. And then on that last drive that the Bengals had with about 6, I think they took over with about 6 minutes left. And they had a third down, and T. Higgins dropped a pass that he should have caught. You catch that pass, and the Bengals probably get another field goal and go up.
T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd?
No, he dropped one earlier.
Okay.
But Higgins dropped that key one on a third down with about 3 minutes left in the game that allowed the Rams to get the ball back. He catches that. They're able to run off some more clock, maybe get a field goal. But even if they don't, the Rams have a couple minutes less than they had. Yeah. So you have to have players step up. And I think the Bengals did to a degree, but I think their other receivers didn't step up to the degree that maybe they needed to.
Yeah, what do you make of this whole, like, the last drive the Rams had? They were like, oh, that was just Stafford was just him and Kupp just decided like they were going to put the team on their back, and he was just forcing it to Kupp down the field. It's like I don't know what they meant. Like all of a sudden Kupp was just like, you know what, I'm going to get open. Like I don't care if like you know what I mean. Like I don't know. Like I don't really know what people. It's almost people were saying. It's almost like the announcers were saying like Kupp and Stafford, they just willed it at the end. They just decided that they're going to win it. Like, well, no, something must have changed, right? All of a sudden, Kupp's catching balls and he wasn't before. He just decided he's going to get open now. Like,
right.
What do you think the deal was with that? Like, I mean, if they were double covering him all game after the Odell Beckham injury and he wasn't having much success, you would think they would know for sure double cover him on the final drive they're going to have of the game.
You would think so. That's right. You would think so. I think the key there. I mean, and again, I don't know this because I guess I got caught up in watching the excitement of it. But I think what happened there, if I remember, on that final drive, the Rams took over. Let's see here. I want to say they took over at about the. Where was it? They took over at their own 21-yard line. Okay. And I think at that point there was about 6:13 left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, roughly. So I think the Bengals were thinking, okay, we're not gonna try to do anything stupid here, and they know they needed a touchdown, and they tried to bracket him, double cover him with bracketing with underneath with a linebacker. And there was a couple plays there where Stafford just made tremendous throws. He waited for Kupp to clear the underneath coverage and just really, really threw the ball extremely well. And when I say forced it to him, I mean, he wasn't looking anywhere else but Cooper Kupp. And then they had that fourth down play. Remember that one where it was 4th and 1 and they ran that little sweep to Cooper Kupp? So, yeah, I agree with you, Nathan. You think that they would have double or triple teamed him, force the Rams to beat you with some other guy, or maybe single or maybe double covering, but at least put one guy on a man and another guy on a deep.
She said basically they were just saying, like, we don't want to – they're basically changing their plan. They're basically saying we don't want to get beat deep or anything, so we're just going to kind of bracket him, let him catch it underneath.
I think that's
come up and tackle him. But then that's what they did. He just kept catching shorter balls underneath down the field.
I agree.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, they changed the way they approached it, the Bengals.
Yeah,
it's not like Kupp just willed it all of a sudden.
I think they did. I think they did.
Which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I can see why they would be apprehensive to cover him man,
right,
in that situation. But you have a double coverage, right? On him, so you get one guy man, like you said, and have a safety kind of like,
I mean, that last play was an 18-play drive, and they scored with 1:25 left. So again, I'm going to go back to the fact that if T. Higgins makes that catch on 3rd down, you're looking at probably, they get the ball back with maybe 4 minutes or a little less than 4 minutes, and maybe even be down by 7 points at that time. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved in it, and it's hard to look at it after the fact and play Monday morning quarterback on it. But you got to know that he's going to go to Cooper, and you got to give what's his name, McVay, credit. He finally got smart and said, "Hey, look, we're not even going to try to run the football anymore." I mean,
well, he couldn't at that point.
I know he couldn't, but he had 6 minutes left, and I think he had a couple timeouts, so he could have at least run it some if he wanted to try to, but he didn't.
I guess I give him credit, but I don't give him that much credit. Like, when the game's on the line, he decided to go to his best receiver. Like, whoa,
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point.
What do you think? Let's talk about these penalties now too, because that
was my next talk about the officiating.
I can't get over the way the game ended. I'll let you go first.
Well, no, I mean, before that, like, seemed like definitely in the first half, and even the third quarter a little bit, they were just letting them play, which they should.
Right.
Well, and even like overly, like that play with Jalen Ramsey, where I don't know if it was T. Higgins or Chase that like basically pulled his face mask away, and like that's obviously a penalty. Like, whether he meant to or not, and Ramsey was upset. He didn't have a good game overall, really. But
no, he didn't.
They're letting stuff like that go. Like the only penalty up to a certain point is when that that player ran onto the field that wasn't even in uniform, which is ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. I'd make him walk back to Cincinnati after the game. But
they showed him on the bench after that. He had this look on his face, just.
And then like the fourth quarter, they're just like, okay, we're going to start calling penalties. I don't really get that.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah,
that's what we're talking about. Like, look, I agree with you. The way they were officiating the first half is how it should always be officiated in the NFL all the time.
Right.
But it's obvious they don't do that in the regular season.
Right.
Which is ridiculous to begin with. But then they made you think, okay, this is the Super Bowl. I guess they're going to be a little more lax, right? But then late in the game, they go right back to the regular season type of, if anything, even more strict. I saw some penalties.
Right.
So it's like pick one or the other. You know what I mean? Like you can't flip. It's one thing to flip flop from the regular season to the Super Bowl. It's another thing to flip flop within a single game, like first half, second half. It was something was really strange about that. Like I don't know what. Like were they told like, hey, start officiating it tighter here in the last couple of drives, or like I don't know what.
Well, it very well could be. To me, it almost seemed like they said. It almost seemed like the NFL had a plan with the officials that said, "Look, we're going to let these guys play. All right. If the game gets out of hand, then we're just going to let them play. But we're going to wait and see what it looks like in the fourth quarter, and then based on that, we'll decide how we want to officiate the game." That's what it looked like to me. You know what I mean? If one team would have been ahead by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think it would have mattered. Yeah. But I think they said, okay, now the game's close. Now we're going to officiate it tight.
Now we want to start having a say in how it is.
Yes,
basically.
Because Joseph mentioned the play where I think it was T. Higgins, the touchdown they scored right out of the half. The Bengals. He obviously pulled the face mask of Jalen Ramsey. There was another play where Jalen Ramsey grabbed onto the shirt of the Bengals and pulled it, and they didn't call that penalty. Yeah. Then on the goal line on third down, they call a holding penalty on the Bengals linebacker, and the guy never held him.
That was a great play by him.
It was a great play.
It was on Kupp, I think.
It was on Kupp. Yeah,
he made a great play, and he wasn't even holding the guy. He knocked the ball down, And that changed the game right there because then you have a fourth down.
Yeah, and then they called one in the end zone.
Yeah, after that, there's another one.
I mean, that was ridiculous.
That's a shame.
That was absolutely ridiculous. And Joseph, let me get your opinion on this because I talked to Nathan about it. When they called that holding penalty on the Bengals in the end zone, and I think it put the ball at the 1 yard line, it was a minute. I want to say a minute 40, minute 45. Do you think the Bengals should have just let him score instead of stopping Stafford on that first quarterback sneak?
Yeah, that's a good question. In hindsight, 2020 now that what happened, but I think I have a hard time letting a team go ahead in the Super Bowl late like that. When you probably think as a defense, you can hold them, like you can make a goal line stand, right? So I don't think they were not letting him score there, especially that situation.
Well, I think obviously the defense is thinking to themselves, we can do this, right? We have to go on stand. But I think the coaches have to they're a little more removed from. I think they need to say, listen, it's very unlikely they don't get a yard and 4 downs.
Right.
I think they got to let them score.
Well, another thing too, Joseph, you alluded to the fact of coaching experience in the Super Bowl. I go back to the Giants Super Bowl with the Patriots in a Super Bowl 46. Same situation. Okay. The Giants were losing 17-15. They had the ball on the 4 yard line. And I want to say there was a little over a minute left and the Patriots let them score. All right. They missed the 2-point conversion, but the Patriots ended up, of course, they have Tom Brady, but they ended up having a chance at a Hail Mary that was almost caught by Gronkowski. So my point is coaching experience there, like Nathan said, the coaches are removed from the intensity of the actual game, and they should have been able to say, hey, look, they're probably going to score here anyway. Yeah. If we go ahead and let them score, okay, then we're going to get the ball back, not with a minute 25, but maybe with a minute 45.
All 3 timeouts.
Right. All 3 timeouts. That's right.
Because the Rams ran one play
and they called a
timeout. So you lost maybe 10, 15 seconds, but you also lost the timeout.
Right. Exactly.
And then they got lucky that the Rams scored on the next play because it could have happened 2 more times and then they scored.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know what you mean, Joseph, that it's tough to let a team go ahead in the Super Bowl, but in that situation, it's not like it was first and goal from the 5 or the 6 or the 4. It was from the 1.
Right. Exactly.
They're going to score.
Right? Exactly. And the Packers did the same thing to the Broncos back in, my Super Bowl numbers are kind of getting cloudy a little bit now, but I think it was 1997, which would make it about Super Bowl 32 or 3, somewhere around there when they were playing the Broncos. They let the Broncos score to give Favre a chance to come back and try to win the game late. So, again, you can go back and say, well, they knew that Burrow didn't have a lot of time, all that good stuff. But like Nathan said, a minute 45, 3 timeouts is an eternity. And I think it would have made a little bit of a difference. I don't know, but who knows,
Well, how it all turned out, I don't know if it would have made a huge difference because they scored on the very next play, but it would have made a little bit of a difference because you have an extra timeout. I'm just saying that it could have even been worse for them. They could have stopped them on that second play, called their second timeout.
Right.
Like it could have even gone worse.
It could have gone a lot worse.
So that's why at the time I think you just decide, listen, let them score here. We have all 3 timeouts.
Yeah, it was interesting to say the least. And I think Joseph made a good point to start out our conversation. The Rams probably were the better team when you look at talent. Odell Beckham's injury aside, they had a better defensive line. Although the Bengals defensive line was awesome. They played tremendous against the run, but they couldn't put as much pressure on Stafford as the Rams were able to put on Joe Burrow. And ultimately, talent ends up winning games. And when you have a guy like Cooper Kupp, I mean, he's just phenomenal. I mean, he just was phenomenal.
Yeah, they showed some stat on TV where, if you include his postseason, he had something like 178 catches for 2,300 yards or something crazy. He had just a career season.
Yeah, and I also saw where he was. I want to say he was undrafted. Or maybe
I thought I saw 3rd round, maybe.
Okay, 3rd round. But I know coming out of high school, he had no profile. He had no stars. He wasn't recruited really by anybody. He wasn't really expected to be much. And that shows you that, shows you what perseverance and hard work can do. I also saw another thing on Twitter yesterday that said that Cooper Kupp said that he and Stafford probably put in well over 500 extra hours outside of practice and required get-togethers together to work on pass routes and timing. So they obviously knew each other pretty well, and Stafford knew exactly where he would be and that he could count on him in certain situations.
They said something about that in the game, like all those extra hours of paying off. Yeah, I mean, that made a difference, I'm sure. But, I mean, you don't think a lot of guys are doing that? Like, I mean.
Yeah, they probably.
I'm just saying it sounds nice here because they're the ones who won the Super Bowl.
That's true.
But you could also say something. You could also probably say the same thing about, Brady and Godwin or somebody, and they're at home. I mean, like, it's
right.
just.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I guess my point is maybe what am I trying to say? I guess my point is that that's what it takes in order to do what they did.
Correct.
You have to do that.
Correct.
But doing that doesn't guarantee that result, is what I'm trying to say.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
It sounds good after you win a Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do to win, but a lot of people do it and don't win. It doesn't guarantee that result. It's not like that's the difference. It's just
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what all winners would do.
Correct. All right, let's switch the conversation up a little bit.
Before you start, I've heard people like announcers and other people in news outlets saying like, "Oh, the Burrow will be back. This is not his last Super Bowl." It's like, well, will he? I don't know. What do you all think? I mean, Marino got to Super Bowl early in his career.
Yeah,
never got back. Right.
That's where I was going to go with my next point.
Oh,
so that was a good segue. Excellent segue. My question, and you're right. Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl in his second year, just like Burrow did, and everybody thought, "Oh wow, Marino's going to be in 4 or 5 Super Bowls," and he never got back. So my question was,
because remember too, he played for a team that was probably great that year, but historically not that great of a team.
And he played for arguably one of the best coaches ever, right?
I should take that back. At that point, they were historically a good team, but
they were pretty good.
But my point is that him on the Bengals is not the type of team you see getting back multiple times, even if you think Burrow will. You know what I mean?
Well, that's right. And the Bengals also have a history of being cheap when it comes to front office spending.
He's
not
the quarterback of the Patriots here.
Right.
He's the quarterback of the Bengals.
All right. So my question was, based on the dust has settled now at the Super Bowl. Joseph, I'll start with you. Forget about free agency. Well, I shouldn't say that. As they're currently constructed and based on moves that they might make in the offseason, which of those two teams do you think has the better chance of returning to the Super Bowl?
I think the Rams do. I mean, kind of for the reasons we laid out, like,
right.
Just their talent. Not again, don't know what's going to happen to some of their guys. Who some guys might decide to retire. They could lose some guys or whatever. But it's not. And when you talk about like Joe Burrow too, it's not like the Bengals are like 13-3 this year, and you're like, oh, here come the Bengals. Like, you're going to be here for years to come. Like, kind of like Mahomes came up with the Chiefs,
right?
With talent around him, and you're like, oh, Mahomes will be back, blah blah. Bengals kind of just got hot at the right time. You could argue, like, I don't know that they're going to be like perennial Super Bowl contenders.
Right.
I don't think it's a guarantee that he gets back to the Super Bowl, but it's assuming no injuries or he plays out his career, it's most likely he might get back at some point, but. To answer the initial question, I think it's definitely the Rams.
Yeah. Nathan?
Yeah, it's the Rams. I mean, like everything just said, basically. I mean, I feel like this was the Bengals' chance right here. I mean, this was their year. They have a good team. Don't get me wrong. Everything. I'm just not just between them and the Rams. Although then again, the Rams put everything in place for this one run.
Right.
So. Who's to say the Bengals won't be better than the Rams next season? You know what I mean?
Well, I agree. I'm going to say it's the Bengals, and I'm going to tell you why I think that. First of all, let's look at the Rams. Joseph alluded to this. They basically sold out on this thing. They said we're going all in to try to win the Super Bowl this year, and they did. Congratulations to them. But they don't have a first-round pick now for the next couple years. Okay, Matt Stafford, tremendous quarterback. But he's going into his 12th year, 13th year, something like that. He's not a Tom Brady by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he had some rough patches during the season. I think he threw quite a few interceptions.
He threw a lot of interceptions.
He threw a lot of interceptions. He can be as bad as he can be good. Von Miller getting to the end of his career. They may not even be able to keep him based on the salary cap numbers. Aaron Donald, I don't think he's going to retire, but he's hinted at looking at his future and possibly retiring. Odell Beckham, I mean, I heard where he tore his ACL again. So the other knee, but he's got 2 ACL injuries. He's going into his 9th year. And Nathan and I talked about this. He was all happy Sunday night, but next year when things start going a little bad, is he going to still be as happy? Okay. Yeah. So I think the Rams have some issues. They're going to have to find a running back, I think, better than they've got. So I just think the Rams may have some more issues. Now, the Bengals, on the other hand, they're young, they're hungry. They've got most of these guys are going to be under contract still, so they don't have to worry about bringing them back. Okay. And really all they need to do is upgrade their offensive line. And that's easier said than done. But I think if they can do that, and they need to upgrade that cornerback position that right now they've got Eli Apple at, but I think they can do it. And I think they're hungry. Now let's look at the divisions. Okay. Both teams play in a very difficult division, right? I mean, the Rams are going to have to contend with the 49ers again. The Cardinals are going to have to contend with, and I'm sure the Seahawks are going to make some moves to improve that football team. So that's a very, very tough division. The Bengals, on the other hand, are in the same situation, right? You got the Ravens sitting there. Lamar Jackson's going to be back. They're probably going to be as good, if not better than they were. The Browns, who knows? I think they could possibly be better. All right. Get back to where they were a couple years ago. And the Steelers are going to have a new quarterback, probably a young new quarterback. And they had arguably one of the best defenses in the league. So I just think all things being equal, I think the Bengals actually have a better chance.
Where's the question? Getting back next year?
Which of the current teams do you think has the best chance as they're currently constructed?
Next year or just to get to another Super Bowl?
No, period. Just to get back next year.
Next year.
Next year.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, those are all good points. I don't know. Maybe it is the Bengals.
Well, I'm not trying to change your mind.
That's a good point. I don't know.
And then look at the conference. Let's look at the conference, okay? I think the Chiefs, while they're still going to be good, are on the downslide, okay? I don't think the Chargers yet have all the pieces in place to get there. The Raiders, I don't think, have all the pieces in place to get there. The Patriots, who knows? The Bills are probably going to be the key factor for the Bengals next year. I think the Bills are on the cusp of getting there. But you look at the NFC, you got the 49ers, you got the Packers, you got the Buccaneers. I mean, who knows what they're going to do, but they're probably going to still be pretty good. And then you look at the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys are the butt of jokes in the NFL, they still have a pretty good team. So I think it's going to be harder on the NFC side than it is on the AFC side.
Yeah, but again, if you're talking next year, the Rams are going to have pretty much the same team next year. Not like if years down the road, the Bengals are set up for more success than this Rams team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But next year, they're basically going to be the same team.
If I don't know what their salary cap issue is. I mean, they may not be able to. They may not be able to bring every piece back. I don't know. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, it was a great season. I'm kind of sad that the NFL season is over now. Football is over. We have to go about another 6 months or so to wait for football to start again. But but it was a great season, and we have a lot of stories that we could talk about in the off season coming up. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting off season. I'll get you guys' take on this. I mean, you got the Aaron Rodgers situation. Is he going to go back to Green Bay? Is he going to go somewhere else? More than likely, you got other quarterbacks that are going to be on the move, probably big name quarterbacks. Russell Wilson may be moving on. Jimmy Garoppolo may be moving on. What's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? Is he going to go to jail? Is he going to end up going to another team and end up being another great quarterback? What's going to happen in Miami now? I mean, you got a new coach down there who I think is 12 years old, and I don't think he's had a lot of experience. Is Tua going to be the guy that's going to take them to the promised land? What about the Chiefs? I mean, what's going to happen to the Chiefs? I mean, are they going to keep all their pieces? Is Mahomes going to get back to where he was 2 years ago? So I think there's a lot of good scenarios, and we got free agency coming up. We got the draft coming up. A lot of good things to talk about from a football perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's on one of the first off seasons where, we talked about the Rams having what it takes to repeat, but I don't think they're the hands down favorite to get back. Like,
no,
maybe you think years past, the Chiefs will be back probably next year. I have to pick the Chiefs. Well, it's still kind of wide open, as to who gets there next year, I think, as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's it for our Super Bowl recap. Another great season in the books. The 2021 season now concluded. The Los Angeles Rams are the world champions, Super Bowl champions, Super Bowl 56. Second year in a row that a team has hosted a Super Bowl at their home stadium. So Joseph, you probably know this quicker than we do. Do you know where the Super Bowl is next year? We could probably.
Is it in
Is it? Oh, it's in Las Vegas, isn't it?
That's what came to mind. Although it could be Glendale again. They seem to fall back in that a lot.
All right, let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, because it's
Well, he looks this up, Josh. What do you think of? We were talking about apparently London wants to hold a Super Bowl over there at some point, and Goodell says that he's open to that. Is that right? Is that
yeah.
I mean, look, at some point that's probably going to happen. I don't know. I based on what we've seen with the NFL in London, and they seem to like it a lot, but it could be a thing where it's like 10 years down the road. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure.
It's definitely going to happen. We were talking, they could play the game at 1 p.m. London time, and it would be no different. It wouldn't be that much different for American audiences. It'd be an hour later.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right now, the European audiences have to watch the game at 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And,
So that's going to get them like a whole lot more international viewership probably, and it won't change American viewership that much, North America.
Yeah, and 99.8% of people in America that watch Super Bowl watch on TV anyway. So it's not that.
Right. And does the NFL really care that they're having it not only in a city, but in a country that they don't have a team in? They don't care.
They don't care. No. All right. So next year, the Super Bowl is going to be Super Bowl 57 is going to be Joseph hit it in Glendale. So I think the Arizona Cardinals are the odds-on favorite to make that Super Bowl. And then in 2024, Super Bowl 58 is in Las Vegas. So look for the Raiders to be in that Super Bowl.
But I'd hate to be one of the coaches of a team that plays the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, trying to keep your players, focused and not getting into trouble, like get arrested the night before the game or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So look what happened to the Pro Bowl. People.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
I feel like there's always a lot of distractions, I'm sure, at the Super Bowl, but I feel like there'd be even more for players in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there probably is. That's a good point. I would hate to see what happens in that one, but anyway, great season. Make sure you stay with us. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at PressBoxPod, on Instagram at PressBoxPod, and then of course our YouTube channel, the PressBox Podcast. Nathan's already put up some good clips from our last episode. I'm sure he'll do the same with this one. So another NFL season in the books. The Rams are the champs. We'll be back with our next episode. Start talking about offseason. We got baseball coming up. Is baseball going to start on time? Is it going to start late? They don't have an agreement yet. But either way, baseball is going to be exciting as we start the 2022 season as the Atlanta Braves are the defending World Series champions. So for Joseph Miranda, I'm Ralph Miranda. For Nathan Miranda, I'm Ralph Miranda. I guess I'm Ralph Miranda for everybody. But we've enjoyed bringing this episode to you. We've enjoyed bringing you the Press Box Podcast of the football season, and we're looking forward to another great 2022. So take care, stay with us, and we'll see you next time on the Press Box Podcast.